All right, so in today's episode, what we're going to find out about is hope-based communications. What are we going to learn today?
We're going to be talking about things that are going to be really useful for your own filmmaking. We're going to be talking about messaging, how to position your message. We're going to be talking about, what is hope-based messaging.
We're going to be looking at the lens that you're even framing your whole story around, the lens you're looking at your story through, and whether that's coming from a place of hope and positivity as opposed to the opposite.
And we're also going to talk about why all of these messages and the positive messages are important if you need your audience to do something so that you can actually make a genuine impact with the work that you're producing.
Perfect, let's do it.
So first, let's unpack what do we mean by hope-based communications. And I think what it is when you watch the news, often that's what I would call fear-based communications. You're talking about terrible doom and gloom, the worst things that could possibly happen, the worst outcomes. Leaves you with a real sense of like, oh, this is just, there's no way we can overcome this. This is really hard.
And I think that's what we can do differently as storytellers. The news well and truly covers the fear-based way of telling stories, and I think current affairs programs do the same. They often come at things with this expose lens which focuses on the worst case scenario, and what we're talking about today is flipping that. So even if you're talking about a topic that may have some negative consequences or some serious downsides, you really start from a position of hope and strength.
So when you're thinking about your own projects, you might think about, say you're telling a difficult story, you might think, okay, so this story is really hard, it's a really hard topic to broach, but what's a positive that could come from it? What could people learn from this story? Is it a cautionary tale? And if so, what's the positive light at the end of that tunnel? And how do you frame it from there?
How do you start from the position of we can change this, we can make a positive change if we take this action? It's about talking about problems and solutions and not just problems alone. And I would say that the news really often does focus on problems alone, as does current affairs. Shows like 60 Minutes, very common that you only hear the problem side of the story. And we're talking about balancing that out and starting and ending with hope. And we think it's very powerful for your communications.
Yeah, so that's a big way that we do all of our impact films, is we always start with, what's the problem, what's the situation, and where's the positive outlook. So what we're really talking about here is messaging, how to message your story within the context of your film. So recently we produced a film called Conquering Cancer, which was all around cervical cancer elimination. So it was a hopeful story because for the first time in human history, we have an opportunity to eliminate a cancer. So the whole film and campaign was created around the hopeful outcome.
We could have just focused it on the problem. 600,000 women or so are diagnosed with this disease every year. More than half of them die from the disease. A woman dies every 2 minutes from cervical cancer. And while some of that messaging was in there, we didn't focus on that, did we?
No, and I think it's a really good point that it's not about toxic positivity. It's not about fake, false positivity. It's about looking at this issue and going, okay, so as a society, we can rise up to this challenge. We can create a moonshot to eliminate cervical cancer for the population of women on this planet. I mean, that's an extraordinary ambition. Right there, that's a very hopeful story. But you can't tell that story without talking about why cervical cancer is such a serious problem.
When we look at the Conquering Cancer series, we've now framed it around positive cancer stories. Sounds a little bit surprising, doesn't it? Because some people hear the word cancer and they go, oh no. Yeah. But we're actually focusing on the positive. So the lens that we're looking at all of the stories through is this one of positivity, not toxic positivity, but about one that can mean that people are better off than they are today.
Yeah, and the reason that we do that, the main reason we do that is it's really, really hard to take on board really serious, really hard topics and then feel inspired to take an action and to be part of a solution. But by coming at it in a positive way, you can enable people to, get involved and make a difference and do something.
Well, I think there's a whole school of thought around this, and one of our clients talks a lot about positive psychology. I'm actually not sure what it means, but I might ask the big guy because he's pretty knowledgeable about things like this. Big guy, what's positive psychology?
Positive psychology is focused on the character strengths and behaviors that allow individuals to build a life of meaning and purpose, to move beyond surviving to flourishing.
Yeah, and I think that feeds really well into how we approach all of our filmmaking.
Yep, and so sometimes this hope-based is also called strength-based, and I know one of our collaborators, Vicky Wade, who's this amazing Indigenous leader here in Australia, you know, often talks about strength-based messaging, and it's this idea that when you hear this message, you have the strength to take a positive action on the back of it. I think it's the same concept, but different language.
So we sort of touched on this a little bit before, but a really important part of impact filmmaking is getting an audience to do something. So if you're creating a project of your own and you're wanting your audience to take an action at the end of it, that call to action is really, really important.
Absolutely, and it comes with strength, it comes with hope. It's about something that you can do that's positive, that can make a positive change. So that's a lot different to what you get in the news and current affairs, where often you've got just this sense of hopelessness, you know, like this is such a terrible situation, I can't do anything about it. Flip that on its head.
The whole idea of a call to action, to get people to take that action, you have to inspire them. And that's where we find that the hope-based messaging really, really is beneficial, because that's how you really get people to get involved.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested in this, I suggest that you go and check out our new ebook, The Ultimate Guide to Video Storytelling, because it really unpacks this in a lot more detail.
Yeah, it's a great, really handy little resource that we've put together for you. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. Just head on over to the website and you can get your own copy.
See you next week. Don't forget to subscribe and comment.